Braxcast time once again. This is the 57th episode of the Braxcast, and we've got so much to talk about. So even though I did a live stream yesterday, if you're watching this on the day I uploaded Saturday, that was on the 21st of March, that was the second episode of Braxcast Live. Had an absolutely fantastic stream, got over 100 subscribers because of that, so thank you so much. I'm talking about on the YouTube channel, and of course had a bunch of great conversations with Andrew, with Edwin, with Palex, with everybody who I talked to. Was absolutely fantastic. Love that stream. Hopefully I'll do more of those in the future. And I think Friday at 6 p.m. for now is tentatively going to be my live streaming slot. But we had an absolutely fantastic discussion about Shadron versus Antoine. That's the Catch Street thing I'm doing, or Catch Street, which is where I'm pitting Rippaverse characters against each other and against other comic book or characters in other forms of media. And then we had, talked about a whole bunch of other stuff, including the fact that we had a drop of an announcement. Great War Separation number 2, its collection is releasing on the 26th of March 2025. That's, of course, going to be a Wednesday at 6 a.m. Central. That is the time that they like to release things. And they, of course, always release stuff a day during the week. Because, like I said in the stream, you got everybody, all hands on deck on business days, right? So this is absolutely fantastic. Of course, I reviewed Great War Separation number 1 very recently. I just got it, right? And now number 2 is on the way, which is definitely a necessity considering how the first one ends. So we definitely need the rest of these books to really understand everything that's going on with Great War Separation. And it doesn't seem like we'll have to wait much longer to get Great War of Separation number 2. So really excited for that. We did talk about a little bit on that live stream, looked at the teaser trailer, but there really isn't much that I can say until we get that collection, which will be this Wednesday. So next episode, I will be talking about Great War Separation number 2. And also what's fulfilled, it's been the Young Isom statue, and we will go and talk about the Young Isom statue now. The Young Isom statue is the second statue released by the Rippaverse and is created in collaboration with Iron Studios based out of Brazil. And it is a high-quality 1/8 statue that depicts Isom as he is shown in Isom number 2 cover D, done by Kane and White. So I'll be showing a whole bunch of pictures. And while this is definitely a much smaller statue, it's a 1/8 scale statue. Compared to the Yaira statue from McFarlane Toys being 1/6, and I'll show them side by side here. It's still just as high quality. It's a mix of resin, metal, and I believe plastic, but it's still a really nice statue. Very nice to look at, solidly built, and is such a nice set piece, and it really accentuates the human form because, Isom's got a very exaggerated physique as he is a comic book character the same way Yaira is, but it's a really great piece to add to your collection, and it definitely is much more affordable than the Yaira statue, but the trade-off there being is that it's much smaller and it's much less substantial because the base is much smaller, his size is much smaller, but still is really nice to look at, really well done, and it definitely makes me excited for what the Rippaverse does in the future in the toy and statue market. So hopefully you guys enjoy my little commentary on the Young Isom statue, but really I don't have anything more to say to that, and hopefully you guys enjoy the pictures and the videos of Young Isom.
It's a uphill battle, but it's my attitude. I'm prepared. If I have to travel a distant avenue, but don't mistake this places for no foundation. I may be an optimist, but I know where we're up against, so shut it. Hate it or love it, we're nothing less than nothing.
Hey guys, hopefully you enjoyed my little covering of the Young Isom statue. Absolutely fantastic. Just as high quality as the McFarlane toy statue, in my opinion, even if it is a bit smaller. But what has also fulfilled is Yaira number 2. So I've got the hat right here, this 3D puff hat. Absolutely love that Y Yaira logo. Of course, it's a little bit hard for me to get it on camera, but hopefully you guys can see this. Absolutely do love it. And of course, always love to see that Rippaverse Comics logo. But we'll go over the 4 my signature series covers. So we've got cover A right here, of course, done by Kanan White. This is the my reading copy for Yaira number 2. I did review Yaira number 2. Absolutely loved that book. Let's get that there. Now we've got Yaira cover B. This is Joe Bennett's cover, and this is, of course, the retro cover. We've got Magus Newmite, Yanessa, and Yantoni. In this one, again, absolutely fantastic as well. Joe Bennett is a fantastic artist. Most prolific Rippaverse artist, and he still finds the time to bang out covers like these. Absolutely talented madman. Gotta love it. And now we've got the C cover here. This is done by Will Conrad, and I'd say this is the foiled and embossed cover, and this is by far the best one. I'm not sure if you guys can see it on camera. This is one in 9.9. They sent me a mint one. I haven't gotten a perfect 10 yet. One of these days, they'll decide to send one to me. But for now, I got a 9.9. But the gold embroidering, like around her, like loincloth, around like the edges of I guess the thigh socks, and all of this like golden, like I guess lacing, it really shines, it really pops in person, and that's because of the foil and embossing. So this is probably the best foiled and embossed cover I've seen so far, and of course you always love to see those signatures. So hopefully zooming out a little bit to show you guys, and of course this is the back. All the backs are going to be the same, but I figured I'll show you the backs of at least one of them. And next we've got, or I should say lastly, we have the D cover. This is Mark Evans. Excuse me, this is Mark Evans' cover. Mark Evans has done Alpha Core 1 cover D. He also did cover D for Yaira number 1, and I believe he did cover D for Gooding. And he has this like realistic water brush style. Absolutely love it. And you see Yaira and Stefania there. Of course, Stefania is in her Alpha Core getup, and of course Yaira is in that. At this point, I'm going to say it's her iconic Yaira suit is what I will call it. Absolutely love to see it. This is a fantastic cover, and it's very fitting for it to be the mass print cover. And these books were all signed in February. And of course, this is the first appearance of Yeshua, who I won't say anything about. You want to see my video review, that spoiler video review, that is definitely a bit of a ramble for Yaira number 2. I talk about Yeshua there, but I don't want to get into spoilers on Braxcast for all the people who have not gotten Yaira 2 yet, but will. But that is Yaira number 2. It is currently in fulfillment, and we know that Yaira number 3 will be on the way this year if what they are saying about what that page at the end of Yaira number 2, after the story has ended, it says that Yaira number 3 will be out this year. So we don't have to wait long for Yaira number 3, just like with Great War Separation 2. But we are going to talk about the Art of Jack Herbert, speaking about the Great War of Separation. Of course, Jack Herbert is the artist on the Great War of Separation, and he is also the artist who did Alpha Core 1 Cover B, this really epic fight scene between Ingrid Valdez and Lillian Renashi that does not happen in Alpha Core, but is something that definitely will most likely happen in the ongoing series. So we're going to get right into this book. We're going to start with reading the back matter here. So Jack Herbert is a Brazilian comic artist who is renowned for his detailed interior illustrations and powerful cover art. Since breaking onto the comic scene in 2005, he's worked with Eisner Award winner Kurt Busiek and Alex Ross, and his work has been celebrated the industry over with his best-selling books, making him beloved by the fans. You can tell when it's a Jack Herbert piece that you're looking at. His style is cinematic, making every fantastic scenario feel very real, focusing on light and shadow to draw the audience's eyes. He started his work at the Rippaverse with Alpha Core 1 Cover B, featuring Ingrid Valdez and Lillian Renashi, and it blew the fans away with its realism, gorgeousness, and dynamism. Dynamism. It made sense and was a perfect fit to bring Jack to team up with the newest Chuck Dixon written limited series, The Great War of Separation. This story has been hinted at since the first Dokumon cards and long awaited from the fans. The story created by Eric July and Chuck Dixon is elevated by the explosive, action-packed artwork that features the very human moments you see during these world-defining times. The Art of Jack Herbert delves deep into the artist's process and feels like a masterclass in building tension, revealing character, and using an arsenal of artists' techniques to drive the story home. Jack breaks down everything from how he chooses the panel setup to how he uses light and darkness to move different focal points on the page to deliver impact, and how the carefully chosen expressions inform the feelings of the characters in the scenes. Truly, reading this book feels like sitting in a comic professor's class and understanding the artist's process. A must-have for comic book fans and those unfamiliar with his work. Be prepared to be in awe of his beautiful work and brilliant insights. So, without further ado, let us get into this. So, this is, of course, Jack Herbert is, of course, the artist. He's also doing the narration. Absolutely love to see the artist giving his own narration and commentary. Invisible Art Studio is lettering this, and of course, you've got the editing team: Eric July, Carol Brown, Andrew Rodriguez, and Igor, who is a staff artist for the Rippaverse. Did the back cover off for Isom 1. He does a lot of the promotional artwork for the Rippaverse. Absolutely fantastic artist. We are starting with the Great War of Separation. The issue begins with this page where the narrative needs to portray the everyday calm of the present moment, disarming the reader so they can appreciate and feel invited to follow the course of this story. To achieve this, I used artistic techniques to reinforce the idea. One of them was the balance between light and shadow and the equilibrium of black and white on the page. The first panel situates the reader and establishes the source of illumination, while the Texas flag identifies the setting as a public school. I placed a tree at the bottom to separate the frames and frame the page, taking advantage of the fact that it is on the opposite side of the sunlight to create a better balance between black and white. In the following panels, notice how I use contrasting light on the characters except in two moments: when young Avery opens up the geography book and when the teacher does the same. In these cases, the lighting shifts because the book's paper reflects light, illuminating their faces with a second light source. This softens the scenes and adds the sense of ease I wanted to convey to the reader. Just all of those like little details, right? You see, I kind of might be hard to see for you guys on camera, but you can definitely suss out what he's talking about in terms of the lighting. And of course, this establishing scene there. Absolutely fantastic to see commentary like this. Absolutely love this. So we'll get into the next page. This page follows the same criteria as the previous one, with a special focus on acting. The priority here was to capture the characters' facial and body expressions with precision, maintaining the solidity and consistency of their visual characteristics. I opted for a predominance of light represented by a greater use of white areas on the page to keep the reader's focus on the central point of the scene. The map Avery is presenting, I used simple and subtle markings on the children's faces in the background, ensuring they wouldn't distract from the narrative. Additionally, the contrast in expressions is crucial. Avery's speech provokes a mixed reaction in his middle-aged teacher, who appears slightly shocked and melancholic at what he has presented. So this is the first scene where Avery's talking about how America is divided. Of course, the way he's talking about it is not up to the snuff of the sensibilities of his middle-aged teacher. But I absolutely love to see stuff like this. And of course, you'll have the map from Irene that was placed on that. The artist does not have to, or Jack did not have to draw that. He just has to draw the book. But this is absolutely fantastic. Love to see these raw pencils and inks. So we are going with the next scene. This page consists of 3 panels, so we're going to this page right here. This page consists of 3 panels depicting a nighttime scene. In the first panel, I avoided using black in the water to make the men stand out, whereas in the last panel, I used the black to enhance the focus on the light, creating a stronger contrast. The variation in the use of black helps highlight the light in panel 3, surprising the men and creating the desired visual impact. So I can definitely see this in person, what he's going for. And you can definitely see how it's light here, and then it's dark here, and then of course you've got the spotlight there, and that really gives that good contrast and makes you feel like the light is overwhelmingly shining on them, which is what Jack was going for. So I absolutely love to see this. I want to keep saying that, but we're moving on to the next page. On this page, I used contrast and balance between black and white to make the action more visible. In panel 1, the overlapping helicopter adds dynamism to the scene, while the darkness of the forest accentuates the gunfire bursts. Panel 2 features a silhouette that reinforces the intensity of the gunfire. In the final panel, I added a touch of beauty with trees inspired by Frank Frazetta and John Bolton without losing the impact of the .50 caliber shots coming from the helicopter. So, you know, these trees here he's talking about. Now, Frank Frazetta is like this absolute masterclass. He did a lot of stuff in the 80s that really accentuated the human form. Like, you know, think of like Conan with all the, you know, honey surrounded by him. That's classic Frank Frazetta. The fact that he's channeling that, using that as an inspiration is definitely a good place to get inspiration from. Absolutely love to see the process broken down here. And of course, seeing these raw pencils and inks looks fantastic as well. But here we are moving on to the next page. Yes, we are moving on to the next page. So this is, of course, as good as any of the other Art of books, basically any Reppaverse book. They have fantastic quality in terms of the paper that they use, and of course the inks as well. On this page right here, I employed a technique called selective focus or emphasis. The idea behind this approach is to guide the audience's attention to a specific element or action, making it the focal point of the scene while minimizing the impact of other elements. In this case, the full focus is on General Brian Solari. So right here, you see there. Even though Soldier Bivens is attentive and reactive, her response directs the reader toward General Solari as he reacts to and analyzes the news. Everything else needs to appear visually less prominent, ensuring that nothing is as sharp as Solari's gaze and presence. He is our hero. Definitely agree with that. Of course, Solari's story in Great War of Separation is merely established in the first issue, and it's going to be developed in the later issues, which is one of the biggest reasons I say that Great War of Separation #1 does feel like it's a setup rather than a really full, meaty story. Of course, when all the books come out and you get the Great War of Separation omnibus, you can just read it through in one sitting and you won't have that issue. But for us now, waiting for those individual issues to come out, that's kind of the issue we're running into now. It's not much of an issue. It's just like, oh man, I need that next book. But anyway, on with the show. Pages that focus on dialogue or lack intense action scenes can sometimes seem less appealing to younger readers. However, anyone working in comics knows that there are many visual techniques available to make these pages dynamic and engaging without compromising the narrative. On this page, the layout plays an essential role. The military officer responsible for the arrest is visually highlighted, gaining a greater presence in the scene. This contrasts with the lower panels, which presents a political discussion that arises as a consequence of the two pilots' actions, prisoners depicted in the opening panel of previous scenes. Or previous pages, I should say. Yeah, absolutely fantastic, just the way this is all presented. So I don't think I'm going to add anything more to Jack Herbert's commentary on that one. Let's see, we're moving on. So here we go. This is a cartel scene. Absolutely love that. You see some like cross-hatching there. Fantastic. This is a page I find particularly interesting and one of my favorites. Here we have multiple henchmen, completely unknown characters to the reader. Therefore, I made sure they didn't appear generic while being intimidated by another equally unknown criminal. I used every visual resource at my disposal to make the page dynamic and exciting. The composition begins with a giant fist slamming onto a table, creating an impact that makes the whiskey glass jump. Startling the henchmen in the background, each character was carefully designed with unique visuals and distinct personalities, making them easily recognizable and differentiated from each other. I want to highlight two aspects, the acting and the consistency of the characters' features. I made an effort to preserve their expressions and individual characteristics throughout the page, reinforcing immersion in the scene. This results in a page full of energy and emotion, which I consider one of the best in the Great War of Separation. Yeah, I definitely think this cartel scene is a really good, really good page. Definitely thinking back on it. But I think some of those pages of Brian are really nice. And of course, as a fan of Isom and the whole Reppaverse, seeing those young Avery scenes was really cool as well. Here we got the next page. So this page builds the tension in just 3 panels. The first panels establish the setting, showing the reaction of the border agent upon realizing the absence of the driver, followed by the trucker running away from the scene. The use of contrast and expressions accentuates the imminent danger in the final panel. The explosion dominates the composition, with debris and intense light amplifying the chaos. The black tones surrounding the explosion blend organically with the black panel borders, further highlighting the brightness. The composition is influenced by the work of Stuart Immonen, Immonen, if I'm saying that correctly. Absolutely fantastic piece of work here. Definitely one of the more climactic moments of Great War Separation #1 was this, because this really kicks off and begins what the chain of events that leads to the Great War Separation. So we're moving on. A paramilitary attack occurs at the border, originating from a large haul truck. However, the most impactful scene on the page is the direct attack by terrorists using 50 caliber machine guns. The prominence of the invader's car in the foreground is reinforced by the applied textures, which create an effect of dirt and corrosion on the body of an old pickup truck. These details add visual weight and realism to the vehicle, making it a central element in the composition. I'm talking about this one here. You can see it. Not sure if you guys can, if I can get it good without zooming, but there's just very subtle line work that he uses on this to make it look like an old beaten up truck. And that's what he's talking about. That's what adds that weight and makes it feel like you're looking at something that's real and dynamic rather than static art. So it's one of the reasons why Jack Herbert is as talented as he is, and it's why he got the gig working with Chuck Dixon. So we've got this page right here, and the commentary on it is, in the first panel, the custom station is in flames. To create the smoke effect, I used ink smudges applied with my fingers, leaving visible fingerprints on the paper. This generated a texture gradient effect similar to hatching, bringing an organic and dynamic aspect to the scene. I created a slightly larger spacing for panel 3, which contains a TV screen, indicating that the TV is inside the limousine where the governor and lieutenant governor are conversing. In the next panel, the limousine is surrounded by protesters to make it stand out amid the crowd. I opted for a play of contrast. The protesters are enveloped in shadows while the car remains illuminated in the center, directing the reader's gaze towards the vehicle. Yeah, can definitely see what the case in that. I believe, forget exactly, well, I think it was Candace Hahn, who was the colorer for Great War Separation. Did a fantastic job of coloring this and really brought Jack Herbert's color artwork to life while maintaining his intention of coloring, because everything he's doing, every panel that he has in his mind when he draws this. He knows how it has to be lit and how the light sources are interacting with the objects. And he does a very fantastic job of doing that in a way that conveys the narrative effectively to the reader. But we are moving on to the next page. I took some reference photos of myself to depict dramatic and realistic lighting more accurately, bringing greater seriousness to the scene. This was essential to ensure the governor, withdrawn in panel 3, did not appear comical. And as he is genuinely frightened, the contrast stands out even more against the firm and solid posture of his lieutenant, who remains in control of the situation. Additionally, the visual composition reinforces this duality. Throughout the page, the left side represents disorder, fear, and nervousness, while the right side conveys control, severity, and composure. You can definitely see that in this page, so absolutely love to see that. So once again, I use the interplay between light and dark, shadow and illumination, but primarily the dominance of black and white. In the first panel, white predominates in the composition, while in the second, black occupies most of the scene. I used a photographic reference to give the National Guard officer more presence, strength, and realism, because if he were portrayed generically, it would weaken my intent for the page. In the 2 panels below, I maintained the same balance between colors, always contrasting black and white in an artistic and visually interesting way. The reader may not consciously notice this technique and probably won't, but this creative effort makes the page much more engaging as it communicates ideas clearly without distractions, resulting in a solid composition. So you definitely see, like, you've got a lot of play between light and dark here. And again, a lot of this stuff is really subtle, but you put all this work into it, and in totality, it makes it an experience that really makes the art pop and really helps with the flow of the story. And of course, when you got a script from Chuck Dixon, it definitely makes it really easy to make a story that not only makes sense, but is fantastic for the reader. So this is a page where Jacob Silman is leaving to go to the front to engage in the Great War of Separation. I balanced this page so that I could guide the reader's eye to what I wanted them to focus on, shading what was less important. Notice how when showing Jacob saying goodbye to his family, I deliberately obscure his expression in shadows while the light illuminates his family in the background. None of this is random, nor does it make the lighting inconsistent or incoherent. On the contrary, everything must appear solidly and plausibly integrated as the reader's immersion depends on it. In panel 2, Avery is talking to his mother and sister, but the focus is ultimately directed to Jacob, who moves forward, about to close the car door while glancing at his family one last time. In the remaining panels, everything is illuminated and clearly visible. His wife's tears, the departure of the taxi, and Avery's desire to keep looking after his father for as long as possible. As I highlighted here, light and shadow are extremely important graphic resources in visual storytelling. Cannot disagree with that. So this page depicts the dialogue between the President of the United States and the Governor of Texas. The panels on the left feature the President, while the panels on the right show the Governor. Their body language reflects their dialogue, and the side-by-side panel arrangement establishes a direct correspondence between them. This page ends by breaking the traditional panel sequence, emphasizing the President in an assertive posture, occupying the most space in the composition, and reinforcing his authority and impact in the scene. Absolutely fantastic. Yes, this is really where stuff heats up. So we still got quite a bit more commentary to go through. Absolutely loving this. Hopefully you guys are too. But we're going through this page. I made the first 2 panels smaller because I wanted to draw attention to the contrast in both characters' attitudes. The Texas governor facing the light, gazing out the window in a confident or triumphant pose, while the president is hunched over, looking shaken, his body leaning toward the shadows. The remaining panels take on a larger format, making it clear that I broke the dual sequence and am now focusing solely on the Texas governor, who seems to have triumphed over his counterpart. And we got the next page here. This is a simple page where I can highlight what I can highlight here is the graphic representation of a scene set entirely in the darkness of night. The challenge is making all elements visible, even though everything is in deep shadow. Notice how I depicted the rooftops, how I highlighted the captured soldiers, and how everything remains clearly visible to the reader. Much of what I learned from Eduardo Rizzo is evident in this scene. Fantastic to see. So we've got more. Let's keep on going. A daytime scene with white light predominating over black, which translates into more visible details. The police vehicle is positioned atop the median, while a highway patrol officer directs the slow-moving traffic. Luggage strapped to car roofs suggests an evacuation scenario. Inside the protagonist's car, a mother talks to her children, who seem completely oblivious to the gravity of the situation. My main concern here was ensuring that the reader fully understands the setting in which our protagonists are immersed. Fantastic to see. We got this other one. This is one of the preview pages for Great War of Separation. This is one I talked about Chuck Dixon with. Or I let Chuck Dixon give his commentary on this, and this is really the dramatic scene of Great War of Separation for Brian Solari. General Brian Solari, our hero, is summoned to the Pentagon and meets with other generals. The entire focus of the page is once again on Brian Solari. Notice I highlighted him beyond the panel borders, and he emerges illuminated against the dominance of darkness in this scene. This occurs throughout the entire page, so that panel 4 also stands out amidst the shadows. And you can definitely see that here, that Brian Solari is the focal point of this page, as he should be. We definitely got to the tail end of this. This page is very similar to page 32. Notice that I increased the projection of shadows, suggesting the passage of time and the sun nearing sunset. Inside the car, lighting remains almost unchanged to maintain continuity with page 32. The largest panel here is a close-up of Harriet's face, adding beauty and visual impact to the page. And then we've got I believe, yes, is the last page of this art book, and we're going to read the commentary here now. This page is simple and does not feature major events, but that does not make it visually less interesting. The landscape, the terrain, the appearance of the guards, and the pickup truck that Solari drives are elements that I take great pleasure in drawing, as they evoke American films and series, something that has always fascinated me. Once again, I emphasize my concern with lighting. I made sure that the sunlight illuminating the guards was the same light that fell on all the elements in the sequence, creating a consistent and realistic atmosphere. This attention to detail enhances the seriousness of the plot and deepens the reader's immersion of the story. And this was a very immersive book to read, but that is all the commentary there. Of course, there are more Rippaverse art books. I've reviewed all of these. Art of Deborah Carita, I did get that in. We'll show that off to you guys next week. So if you love this art book review, or art book overview, I should say, the Art of Deborah Carita is going to be next week. So stay tuned for that, and stay tuned for everything in the Braxcast. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this one, and hopefully you guys stick around if you're a new subscriber. If you haven't subscribed yet, of course, hit that subscribe button, especially if you want to keep up with Rippaverse stuff, because there's going to be an absolute smorgasbord of stuff coming up this year, because they're just dropping books left and right. And it's stuff that's not even talked about in the Rippaverse. So you gotta have somebody to break this down and give you the high or the down low on everything that's going on, and that's what the Braxcast is for. But nothing else for this episode. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this one. Joker is out. Thank you for tuning in to the Braxcast. Be sure to like, comment, follow, and subscribe to keep up with the Rippaverse.